All right, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. Amen. Hello, welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining me again, spending some time with me. If you spent some time with me before, multiple times today, appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in again. Can barely see me on here. Don't really have lighting together. Trying to find a spot where the lighting will be acceptable. This might be the best that we can get, but we're gonna do what we gotta do. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all for being on. As always, we give all praise and honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give praise to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. Okay. Teda. I'm doing well, thank you. Baba Kasha. Amen. Hello to everybody. Just wanted to come out here and talk about. This is the day after the Super Bowl, and so many people watched. I watched some highlights and watched some sports things and everything, and caught up a little bit to see what was going on. And I wanted to use one of the players out of this game, Matthew Stafford, the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams, and I wanted to kind of use something for him because he was able to get past the narrative. He was able to get past the narrative, and really that's, what I want to talk about today, because there's a narrative that's written by many people, and there was a narrative written about him, and we want to make sure we help people to recognize that you can get past the narrative, you can go past it, you can think past it, you can grow past it, you can realize that what everybody else might be trying to say about you is not necessarily the truth. And as long as you know what you're doing and are aware of things, you'll be able to get past. So, hey, thank you for the love. Thank you for the gifts, Minister Tamara. Thank you for the likes, the shares, all that great stuff. We appreciate you for being on with us. So there's this player who's the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams who just won the Super Bowl. His player is Matthew Stafford. Now, his whole career until this year, he had been on a team called the Detroit Lions. And the Detroit Lions, and whether people want to, I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody's team or anything like that. I'm not a fanatic, but I know how fanatics are when it comes to their team, right? How you doing, LaShondra? Thanks for being part of the community. When it comes to fanaticism, when it comes to fanatics, people get very wild about teams, and people put so much stock into sports. And I get it, I still pay attention to sports a lot because it's like a male soap opera, right? And, the organization wasn't great. And what had happened is you had Matthew Stafford, who I believe he was the first pick when he was picked, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, whatever it was. And when he was chosen by his team, when you get chosen to the first team, you're usually chosen by the team that's not great. Memphis in the house, cool. We got some people in Tennessee. That's what's up. In our community, we got some people in Tennessee, and we have some friends and stuff as well that are there as well. So, matter of fact, I don't know. We were invited there. Did we go past through there? I don't know if we ever went through there, but it's something that's on our list at some point to go there. Nevertheless, when we're talking about Matthew Stafford, right? Matthew Stafford is somebody where we have an interesting conversation because he was on the Detroit Lions, right? Considered to be a terrible team. And but because he wasn't winning, and still, even with having this great year and season that they had, he still has a less than 500 record. In other words, he's lost more games than he's won. He would do all these great things. He had the most fourth quarter comebacks. He was considered to be this great talent, and he stayed. He played the role of the good soldier, right? He was somebody who did everything he could to try and make the team work. He never talked bad about the organization. He was there with great players who retired on him or would go other places and have great careers because he was part of an organization that really wasn't going to make decisions that was going to help him to obtain what he needed to. And he got traded to Los Angeles, the coach of the Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay, made it a point to come to him before the season started, at the end of last year, and said, hey, we believe in you. We have a quarterback that we don't think is going to help us to be able to get to the Super Bowl. We put all our stock in and everything. We believe that you're the last piece. Would you come on over? Now, he accepted. As soon as he accepted, what he accepted was something that a lot of us aren't willing to accept. But he had to accept this when he accepted everything and was ready for the trade, when the Detroit Lions finally once again said, we're just going to ball everything up, throw it in the trash, and start from scratch again and see what happens. And what happened is that as soon as he said, okay, I'm ready to leave and I'm going to come to the Los Angeles Rams, you have people even say he's a choker, even though he had all those fourth quarter comebacks. He never won a playoff game, even though I think they made it 3 times. When he accepted coming over, what he accepted was responsibility for whether they made it or not. The whole trade was Super Bowl or bust. If you guys don't win the Super Bowl, everything that you've worked for, Brother Thomas said, yes, he's from the D. He basically said, I know that when I come over here, everybody's not going to care about any games I win. They're not going to care about playoff wins, even though I've never had playoff wins. They're going to try to say that I'm not great enough to be able to make it to a Super Bowl because I've been with the Detroit Lions and we've continued to lose over and over and over and over again. And because I'm coming over to Detroit, I'm coming from Detroit to now Los Angeles Rams, everybody's expecting we will win the Super Bowl. We have the best talent. We supposedly, some people might say, have the best coach. We have all these different things. And so when I'm coming over, I'm expected to win, period. And people kept saying it all year long. Okay, well, he's doing great. Then he had a couple stretches. They lost some games. And all of a sudden it was, see, we told you he's not that great. Then they started winning again. Okay, well, he's still not that great. Then they got through the playoffs. One playoff game after playoff game after playoff game. You're still not great. You're still not this. You're still not that. They make it to the Super Bowl. Hey, all the stuff that you did is great. We don't care. You're not a great quarterback, this, that, whatever, right? And so he won the Super Bowl. And now, all of a sudden, people are saying he's going to the Hall of Fame. Right? He had the same numbers, had everything, but he's going to the Hall of Fame. Now, all of a sudden, hey, you know what? He was on a bad team. He was a bad squad. It was a bad environment. That's the reason he couldn't lose. But up until then, even up until basically the last, they didn't score a touchdown to the last minute or minute and a half or something was left over, if I remember correctly. So, and all those things, he understood, right? Had all that stuff on him, and he knew all it took was him to go down, score his touchdown. All it took was the Los Angeles Rams to win. All it took for him to be the quarterback on a winning Super Bowl team, and the narrative changes. Now, here's the key. It was never his narrative, right? It was never his narrative, right? It was never his narrative. We got some people arguing, I guess, somewhere. Well, it was never his narrative, right? And all those things going on, it was never his narrative. Narrative, remember the word narrative is talking about or an ideal, rather, I-D-E-A-L. It just simply means somebody's creating their own narrative. So there was an ideal that was attached to him. There was a thing that somebody had built a narrative around him that said that he had talent, but he could never win. He had Calvin Johnson, but he couldn't win, as if Calvin Johnson and him on the team means that the whole team is great, right? But, you had Reggie Bush, even though Reggie Bush never amounted to what people thought he would either, but people just kept saying he's not great enough. We forget that the Detroit Lions had great people, great players like, one of I consider him to be the greatest running back of all time, and Barry Sanders, right? But Barry Sanders couldn't win in Detroit. Picked up the team, put them on his shoulders, got him to the playoffs a few times, made it a point to be healthy, had like muscles, leg muscles and stuff that are like of the stuff of legends, right? Hey, Shalom, Beverly. Great, glad that you're doing better. Hey, Untamed Barry, how you doing? Right? Shalom to you. And so all these things that are going on, and he knew that all it took, right? It took a whole season, right? It wasn't easy, but it took, Barry Sanders was the truth, right? One of these days, it's a shame I have to see how much you seem to know a lot about about football, especially, but you're from Texas. Down in Texas, y'all know about football, right? To some places, they say down there, God, Jesus, and football or something crazy like that, Nevertheless, and shalom to everybody, by the way. Bless you. Thanks for being on. But the narrative had been built for so long. for so long that everything that they thought, everything they believed, everything they were looking forward to, everything that they were going to talk about was basically like, we're waiting for him to fail. Yes, that right. They were trying. They had built a career. They had, not him. They had built a career that said it doesn't matter how bad the organization was, this and that, right? But all it takes is for him to continue to remain the same player. He had the same talent. He had the same mindset. Then all of a sudden, he gets talent added to him with the players around him. He gets put in a different environment. He gets put under different ownership. He has a different coach. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, everything that was said about him now disappears. There will still be people who will say, I still don't trust him, right? There will still be people who say, I don't think that he's all that. There will still be people that try to say that he's not great. But I mean, heck, there are people that try to say LeBron James is sorry. There are people that try to say Michael Jordan ain't what you thought he was. There are people that try to say Bill Russell ain't great. Like there's always somebody out there. But people are going to people can try all they want. But guess what? All it took was Super Bowl ring. For the rest of his life, you will have to address him as Super Bowl champion. Right? You said they got rid of the coach that was winning to get a loser. Yeah, matter of fact, they got, what's his name from years ago now? I'm forgetting his name. I see his face clear as day. He was a great coach. You guys had the black coach. I forget what his name is. And they fired him to get the dude from New England who was terrible. And then I don't even know who the coach is now. Tall guy. I know the players seemed to play for him, even though the season wasn't that great. But hey, he didn't have. I can't fault this new coach because he ain't had nobody this year. Nevertheless, though, he changed. Everything was changed, not because he changed. Do you get what I'm saying? Everything was changed, not because he changed. Everything was changed. Why? Everything changed due to the fact that the environment changed, right? You give them not only one wide receiver, but then they went out and got Odell Beckham Jr. They had Robert Woods, I think, before he got injured. You had somebody else who actually got injured, but it didn't matter. You give them some more talent there, right? Even without tight ends, by the way, still give them some talent. You give them a defense. Defense, what some people would say, some people are arguing now whether Aaron Donald is on the same level as LT, Lawrence Taylor, right? And they're not far off. They'll tell you, some people will tell you he's better than oh, wow, my man at Green Bay, Reggie White, the preacher, the pastor, Reggie White, who played at Green Bay and Philly, right? And he changed his narrative, too, when he went from Philly to Green Bay. That's another conversation, though. But all it took for Matthew Stafford to now be addressed for the rest of his life as a Super Bowl champion, for now people to say he's Hall of Fame worthy. Maybe not everybody believes it, but he's Hall of Fame worthy, right? All it took was the environment to change. Yeah, he had the arsenal of tools, right? He had, they brought over, matter of fact, they didn't stop at OBJ, or I guess before they brought OBJ over, they brought over Von Miller from Denver. And they were saying Von Miller couldn't play anymore. When they brought OBJ over, they were saying OBJ couldn't play anymore, right? OBJ is part of the reason why they even made it to the Super Bowl and was balling out. Had he not got injured, they probably win the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl going away because they couldn't stop OBJ in the beginning. He was probably going to be your MVP. Or Matthew Stafford would have been, because he would have been able to have all those weapons. But when the time came down to it and it came time for him to win, a lot of people are saying, oh, he changed the narrative. Now he's successful. Now he's somebody we can trust. The reality is that he did the same thing he was doing in Detroit. He has the most fourth quarter comebacks, I believe, of all these active quarterbacks. Has the most since he got in the league. He was always coming back. He was always, if you gave him a chance, an opportunity as a team, if the environment was right, he was always going to be able to do things that were great. And the same thing is with you, right? The same thing is with us, right? You are always great, but maybe people don't see it because you're not at the Super Bowl. How many people were watching Matthew Stafford at Detroit Lions games outside of Thanksgiving, right? If you weren't from the D, how much were you really paying attention to Matthew Stafford? So if you heard somebody tell you Matthew Stafford was terrible, you just believe it. You said OBJ got injured because of Stafford? I guess maybe. It seemed like he had a non-contact injury. It seemed like he landed wrong on that leg, but I didn't really watch it. I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I don't really watch NFL games. I keep up with stuff, but I don't really watch NFL games because I'm kind of just tired with the whole NFL situation. That can be another conversation too. Hey, Miss Modesty, how you doing, right? But everything that happened with Matthew Stafford, his whole life, he didn't change. He never. Now I can't. Now, if you from the D, you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, because once again, they didn't have him on TV. But I don't remember Matthew Stafford ever coming out and saying how terrible Detroit was, even when Calvin Johnson left, even when they got rid of Golden Tate. Golden Tate was nice for them. Even when you got rid of I forget who the cat that was playing with Golden Tate for a little bit, right? It was a non-contact injury. Okay. Yeah, but maybe you're saying he placed the ball in the wrong place or something, so OBJ had to turn. Could be. I don't know. Nevertheless, he never said, okay, he never did yet. So he never said anything about him. He was the same player. He got to the Los Angeles Rams. He uplifted his teammates. He always did that. There's a guy that's on TV, Dan Orlovsky, who was not a great quarterback, but was a backup for the Lions for a whole bunch of years. Matthew Stafford was there, if not all the years, I'm not even sure. And he's on ESPN. He's always talking about how great Matthew Stafford is because people love being around the guy. He didn't change. The only thing that changed was his environment. And now that people got to see him on TV all year, because they wanted him to be on TV because the Rams supposed to be Super Bowl champs. So through the whole year, they're playing him on television. You're hearing people say ins and outs about him. People are now starting to put on pressure. And through the pressure, he never wavered. He remained the same. And the same is with us. Just because people don't see you in a great environment doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing. You might be in an environment that doesn't cause the wins to happen. See, the wins are not necessarily on you. We talked about this. We put this on Patreon for the second Patreon video. Was it the first Patreon? Maybe it's the first Patreon video for the day. I'm not sure. But we put this on Patreon earlier. Oh, hey, babe, I was just thinking about trying to make sure I said 7:19. I missed it, but thanks for letting me know. And my wife is on the Honorable Mind. Thanks for being on, babe. Appreciate you. Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, but the letter N. Follow her on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest. Don't forget, Mucus Detox is the tincture of the month. Right, but all it took was Matthew Stafford to just simply be put in an environment where he was going to be given the right tools. Right, that's all it took. Hey, Jele, is it? Jele? I'm not sure if I said that correctly. Welcome. Thanks for being on. So all it took was for him to be put in the right environment. Same as for us, right? He knew the plan, big reward. Yeah, all it takes for us is to have somebody believe in us and give us the environment that's necessary. You said great regardless, Super Bowl is just one game. I mean, that's true, but it's considered to be the biggest of games. And all it took was him to get what? To get put out in front of people, right? So, yeah, it's just one game. I don't disagree with that. Like when people talk about the NBA Finals and so-and-so, in the NBA Finals, so-and-so had a bad game or something like that. It's like, yeah, there's 7 games in the NBA Finals. Somebody allowed to have a bad game, right? But we're into this narrative build, especially now because we got into this new thing, this new environment, this new culture that, like, people count rings. How many Super Bowls did you win? How many NBA Finals did you win? As if, like, somebody who was on a bad team has the same shot as somebody that's there. Like, look, believe it, like Jerry West, for example, in the NBA, he's the logo of the NBA. Didn't he lose something like 8 or 9 finals and only won 1? Right, but he's still the logo because back then, if you're a great player and you on the team that's suspect, but you can keep carrying that suspect team to the finals on your shoulders, we give you credit for that. People try to say Wilt Chamberlain, who has every single record just about in the NBA still, and stopped playing in the 70s. And there's stories of him playing one-on-one with like Magic Johnson and stuff after he had been retired and shutting down Magic Johnson. Right? Got tired of Magic Johnson talking trash and said, I'm just going to shut everything down. Nobody's going to score. And made sure at what people would say, the older age, still shut down everybody. And then finally said, okay, now I'm finished. Now, now I've proven my point. Now you can go back to playing because I don't think you're going to talk trash anymore, right? But we have these narratives that build up to where if, for people, and by the way, it's always interesting, it's people who don't even play the game or played the game, but it could only make it to a certain point that could not even be considered to be on the same level as any of these players. Forget just in the games that they play. These people aren't even as great in the broadcast booth as these players are on the field, right? But they get to tell you and I how great somebody is. Well, you got to comprehend that people are doing the same thing to you in your life. Getting back to what I was talking about earlier for the patrons, one of the videos up on Patreon today, I made it a point to put out there that you're gonna when it comes to planting a seed, a lot of us are like trying to focus on We got, planting a seed. We treat planting a seed crazy. Like planting a seed, I'm going to use the physical way, but then we'll switch to the spiritual real quick. People believe that when you plant a seed, for whatever reason, we end up thinking like you take a seed, you put some dirt in your hand, you put a seed in your hand, you water it, you put it in the sun, and then it's going to grow in your hand. That's not the environment for a seed to grow, right? Your job is not to make the seed grow. Your job is to make sure the seed is placed in the right environment. You take the seed, you put it in the dirt, you put some water on it, you give it some sunlight, and you let it grow, right? Hey, how you doing, Big J? So that's what you're supposed to do, right? You plant the seed in the correct environment, and then the seed will flourish, right? It will bloom and flourish, right? Shameless plug, right? But you put it in the right environment, and it grows. It's not my responsibility to grow the seed. It's my environment to make sure the seed has the correct environment. If I put a seed in the correct environment, it will get all the water, the sun, and the nutrients, and the soil, and everything that it needs to be able to therefore give birth to other plants and have more seed, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, blue is my favorite color. How you doing, right? So this, but we do the same thing figuratively. We think that we are responsible for the seed growing. The seed has everything in it that's necessary. The thing the seed cannot control is the environment that it is put inside. Right? And you are a seed, you are a tree, right? If you're supposed to be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that in a season it gives much fruit. Well, if you are a tree, the tree is a seed, the seed is a tree already. So the seed has the tree inside of it. The seed is already the tree. The seed already has all the DNA. It has the chlorophyll in it. It has everything it needs. It's just looking for things like magnesium, other things to come across to be able to give it what it needs to grow. But it just needs the environment. Amen. Thank you, Pax, right? It just needs the environment. And Matthew Stafford was a seed. You put him in the wrong environment, he couldn't grow. You put him in the right environment, he grows. Same thing is with you. Don't be upset so much about the seed and the fact that you're not growing your shoots out yet. You haven't rooted that deep or whatever. It could be possible that you're not planted in the right environment. And by the way, you don't have to depend on self. You have community. You have the Most High. You have kingdom law, natural law, law of attraction, law of first mention, universal law, principles that are there that will allow you to be planted in the right environment, right? Don't get upset or frustrated. You can't control the growth if you're not in the right environment. However, the one thing the seed doesn't do, no matter what environment it's in, the seed doesn't have a choice but to be a seed. And what we try to do is we try to change ourselves from a seed and do something weird. Right, but a seed is designed to do what a seed does, right? If the seed, Matthew Stafford, he was in the wrong soil. All it took was a transplant, Super Bowl, right? All it takes is to be transferred from one environment to the next. Don't stop being a seed. Don't stop trying to be something that you're not, right? Or don't start trying to be something that you are not. Do not make it a point to try and change into something that you're not. You are a tree already, right? You're growing into a tree, but your growth might be stunted. You might be stagnant. You might not be able to get past what it is that you want to get past. All in due time. The environment's going to come, but while you're there, you never stop growing. If the seed doesn't grow into something mature enough to bear fruit, it still is a plant. It still goes through the seasonal changes. It still withers at times and then comes back. It still soaks up nutrients, right? So it's still learning and growing and maturing. Even if it's older and it's still smaller, it's still going through the system. It's still learning. It's still growing. It's still maneuvering. It's still comprehending how magnesium works with the chlorophyll and all those things. Eventually, it gets to a place to where once the transplant happens, or sometimes the environment changes on its own, It might be an environment where people are spraying chemicals and it doesn't get to grow, right? But then all of a sudden people stop spraying chemicals and it gets to grow. Sometimes it might not be able to get the water that's necessary, but then all of a sudden something happens. A beaver could build a dam, and then all of a sudden it's right next to the water, planted by the rivers of water. And in the season now it gives forth fruit, right? You might be in the council of the unholy, of the people that are not like Elohim. We're not trying to be righteous or be a right legal standing. All it takes is a transplant. Right? Be the seed. Right? I've said this before. You've never in your life been in your house and an apple tree came and knocked on your door. And when you opened it, it said, "Hey, I'm an apple tree. Would you like to go ahead and get my fruit?" The apple tree stays where it is. And at some point, if an animal, if a human being, whatever, if an insect, if they want the fruit, they will come looking for the fruit. You don't have to go out of your way. or the tree doesn't have to go out of its way to find somebody, right? You're laughing at me, Sister Barbara, right? The tree doesn't have to go out of its way to find somebody. The tree will be found, whether it's found by you, whether it's found by the person who brings the apples to the grocery store, whatever. Somebody will find the tree to be able to get the fruit. Just be what you're supposed to be. It might be difficult. You might not get recognized. You might not be on television all the time. You might not get all the views. Heck, we go ups and downs, as you guys know, right? Dealing with these shadow bans and all the stuff that happens. You might be all over the place, right? You might have people who come on and get irritated by you. You might feel like, man, I should have been done with this job years ago, whatever. Stay faithful to what the Most High is telling you. Be who you are and watch your circle. All it takes is an environment change, right? All it takes is a seasonal change. All it takes is it stops snowing, the last frost happens, 2 weeks later, seeds begin to manifest, right? Matthew Stafford didn't win the Super Bowl because he became better. Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl because he simply went to another environment and did the same thing he was doing in one environment, and it transferred to another. And once again, the same is with us, right? All it's going to take is the environment. The second that you decide to give up or wilt, or say, I'm no longer going to be a seed, all right? That's the second that you give up on the environment change. The environment change is coming, right? Sister Beverly laughing at me too. The environment change is coming. Somebody, who else was in here laughing at me? Minister Select Sonia, right? But it's real talk though, right? Don't give up before the environment changes. Don't give up. The environment change should happen tomorrow. For those of you who believe in such things, if you believe in an ice age, right? All it took for things that couldn't grow in an ice age, for things to grow, was for the ice to melt. All it took for the world to separate, right? What some people call Pangea, others of us know come from Peleg, right? In the time of Peleg that came from the flood. All it took was flood for water to grow high and then for it to recede. Two environment changes, back to back to back to back, right? Environment changes, back to back to back. It happens all the time. Right? You came out of a bad relationship. You're saying you can never be the same. No. Hey, you were in a relationship. If you were a husband and you had somebody that wasn't deserving of you as a husband, you remain a husband. You get better as a husband. You be a husband because you're supposed to be pre-qualified for marriage anyways. You stay committed to being a husband. Next thing you know, the environment changes. A wife shows up. And now the same thing you were doing for somebody else, it blesses your wife, right? If you're a wife and somebody left you or you lost somebody or whatever the case might be, hey, the goal is not to stop being a wife or try and figure out how can I change. No, stay a wife, stay that seed, stay committed, be in your word, do what you need to do, continue to grow, continue to grasp things. So now when you find when a husband finds you, you are the same that you were before. Now, if you weren't a seed, if you weren't a wife, if you weren't a husband, we need to change that, right? But your goal is not to become something. Matter of fact, don't become something different, because if you're a wife and you don't have a husband, you're supposed to be married to the Most High anyways, right? So be married to the Most High and be his wife and be a wife and continue to be a wife. And next thing you know, a husband shows up and all the Most High says is, okay, I'm going to trust you with my wife, with my bride. I'm going to allow you to be her physical version of the bride. And now you didn't change at all. You just stayed committed to being the seed. So now that the environment changes, you can grow in a different manner. That's all we're talking about, is staying committed, staying consistent. That's something I learned from Super Bowl weekend. Everybody else probably learned some different things and listen to whoever speak on these things and give commentary. One of the things that I've gotten out of this is that Matthew Stafford never changed. He was a seed, and he was growing, but his growing was stunted. Next thing you knew, somebody took you from one place and transplanted you into the next. Now you're rooted. Next thing you know, you're a Super Bowl champion for the rest of your life. And all these things that people said about you now, heck, the next thing, let him have 3-4 more great seasons. I promise you, the next thing that's going to happen with him, let him have 3-4 great seasons. He doesn't even have to win another Super Bowl. Some people say he does. Let him just have great stats for 3-4 more seasons and retire. He can probably go longer than that, but let's just say he only give you 3-4 more seasons of great stats. He already got the Super Bowl ring. Guess what happens? He'll be in the Hall of Fame. He was a loser before in people's eyes because he was in the wrong environment. Now all of a sudden, the correct environment will have him putting on that gold jacket, and it's gonna have him with that, with that ring. I don't know if it'll be a gold ring or whatever. It's gonna have that ring on his finger, and for the rest of the history of the NFL, everybody will always have to refer to him as Super Bowl champion. You are a champion. You are amazing. You are incredible. And nobody's going to be able to stop you from being you. I don't care if everybody sees it yet. You are already amazing. I don't care if everybody's written the narrative about you. You are already outstanding. I don't care if somebody told you that you aren't going to be able to do great things. Guess what? You're already doing great things. Right? And by the way, the seed that's been planted in you already, you didn't even really need me to say it. All I did was just speak into something that you're going to come into agreement with, because you already know that you are. So recognize that, realize that. I appreciate you all. I got to get ready for class. I don't even know where or how we're going to make this happen, but we're going to find a place to make this class happen. Might even have to do it from the car and have to write on the whiteboard somewhere in there, but we're going to figure out a way to make it happen. Thank you all so much, though. Thank you for being on. Remember who you are. That's a page where we can learn a page out of Matthew Stafford's book. Stay committed. Stay who you are. You don't have to call everybody out when you know that they're the reason why you're not doing well. Stay faithful. Stay committed. Love yourself. Love those around you. And when the environment change comes, be ready for the shift. And once again, you already are. So thank you for being on. Once again, check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest. We hope and pray that you got this message and that you pray about it. You not only hear it, but you pray about it, meditate on it, fast, whatever you must do to ensure that you can keep this word inside of you and you can execute. We don't want you to just be hearers only. Hear the word so that you might do it. Execute, execute, execute. As always, this has been Pastor Kofin, pastor of Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. I will talk to you later. Peace.